The first glimpse. Dorian sees his portrait. A scene from The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, 1890 to 1891. The studio was filled with the rich odor of roses, and when the light summer wind stirred among the trees of the garden, there came through the open door the heavy scent of lilac. In this fragrant sanctuary of artistic creation, Basil Hallward stood back from his canvas, brush in hand, studying his masterwork with the critical eye of a creator who knows he has achieved something extraordinary. Lord Henry Wotton lounged on the divan, his keen eyes missing nothing. He had been watching the portrait take shape over recent weeks, and even his jaded sensibilities recognized that Basil had transcended mere technical skill to create something that captured not just a face, but the very essence of youth itself. When Dorian Gray finally arrived, he entered with the unconscious grace that had made him the artist's obsession. He was young, barely 20, with a face that seemed sculpted by a master hand. His beauty was of that rare type that appears almost otherworldly. Golden hair that caught the light like a halo, blue eyes clear as a summer sky, perfectly formed features that suggested both innocence and a certain undefined sensuality. "Come, Dorian," Basil said, his voice trembling slightly with an emotion he couldn't quite name. "I want you to see it finished." Dorian approached the canvas, and what happened in that moment would alter the course of his entire existence. The portrait showed him in all his youthful splendor, captured with such skill that it seemed almost alive. Every detail was perfect: the curve of his lips, the brightness of his eyes, the unblemished smoothness of his skin. It was him, and yet somehow more than him, an idealized version that crystallized his beauty in a way that even a mirror could not. For a long moment, Dorian stood transfixed, staring at his own image. A flush of pleasure colored his cheeks as he saw himself through Basil's adoring artistic vision. He had never truly comprehended his own beauty until this moment, never understood the power it held. "It is quite finished," Basil murmured, studying Dorian's reaction with anxious hope. But Lord Henry, ever the philosopher of pleasure and corruption, chose this moment to plant his poison. He began to speak in his characteristic manner, witty, provocative, dangerous, about youth and beauty being the only things worth possessing in life. He painted a picture with words as vivid as any on canvas. Dorian would grow old, his beauty would fade, his youth would vanish like morning dew. Time would steal everything, leaving him with nothing but faded memories of what he once possessed. As Lord Henry's seductive words filled the studio, something shifted in Dorian's consciousness. He looked again at the portrait, and this time he saw it differently. The painting would remain forever young, forever beautiful, while he, the living, breathing man, would wither and decay. The portrait would mock him with its eternal youth, while his own face grew lined and aged. The realization struck him with the force of a physical blow. A terrible feeling of jealousy, irrational, impossible, yet utterly consuming, swept through him. Why should the painting remain beautiful while he must suffer the ravages of time? It seemed a monstrous injustice, a cruel joke played by fate. "How sad it is!" Dorian cried, his voice filled with genuine anguish. "I shall grow old and horrible and dreadful. But this picture will remain always young. It will never be older than this particular day of June. If it were only the other way. If it were I who was to be always young, and the picture that was to grow old. For that, I would give everything. Yes, there is nothing in the whole world I would not give. I would give my soul for that." The words hung in the air like a curse, or perhaps a prayer. Basil was horrified, Lord Henry amused, and Dorian himself felt a strange mixture of passion and desperation. He did not know, could not know, that in that moment something fundamental had shifted in the fabric of reality. His wish, thrown out in a moment of vanity and despair, would be granted in ways he could never imagine. The portrait stood unchanged on its easel, beautiful and perfect. But somewhere, in dimensions beyond human understanding, a bargain had been struck. The painting would become a mirror of his soul, while his face would remain unmarked by time or sin. Dorian Gray had seen his portrait for the first time, and nothing would ever be the same again.